Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to talk about Saved by the Bell Season 2. Now, this is, of course, Saved by the Bell, the reboot that started in 2020. That is a Peacock original. It is a reboot of the beloved 1990s series. I have a video in the archives on it on the first season, and I gotta say, in my opinion, the second season is even better than the first season. I said in the original review video, just to go back and backtrack, that this is tackling serious issues. Unlike the original Saved by the Bell, the original Saved by the Bell didn't really tackle hard hitting issues like racism, xenophobia, transphobia, homophobia, or anything of that nature. But this one is so. This second season is a follow up. It follows the lives of the new students, the Frederick Douglass High School students, as they began to integrate into Bayside. Now, in season one, they were kind of the focus was on the tension between the Douglass kids, um, Daisy, Devontae, and Aisha, with the Bayside kids, Mack, Zach Morris's son, Lexi, um, the trans girl, and Jesse's son Jamie, and also following up somewhat with the cast of the original Jesse Slater and Kelly and Zach, and of course Mr. Todman. But now it's a year later. The kids, the Frederick Douglass kids, are sort of integrated into the school, and they're just like the other kids. But real life events crept in. The COVID-19 pandemic prevented them from all going to school together, so they had to, just like other kids in real life, they had to go to school remotely, through tele through remote education. So this is kind of affecting their mentality, their mental state. But now they're preparing to go back. Daisy, of course, she's very studious, so she is ready to go back and she is pumped up. Aisha, she made a name for herself on Bayside's football team, so she is ready to go back. Um, Lexi, she is still continuing to be the social media and the reality TV star that she is. Even more so, she has a crew following her around. And her and Jamie, at the end of last season, they began a relationship together. So season two follows up with their relationship as far as how they've been going out. I was thinking that they were going to emphasize the tension between Aisha and Lexi, because Aisha, of course, is Jamie's ex girlfriend. Aisha, when she first got there, she was really crushing on Jamie. She really liked Jamie, and they went out for a while, but then Lexi sabotaged it because Lexi had this childhood crush on Jamie ever since she got to know him. And like I said in the season one review, her trans status and the fact that she's a trans girl was just taken so matter of factly. She's accepted by her peer group, she's accepted by her friends, and even Jamie himself doesn't even make it an issue. It becomes an issue in a later episode when she tries to do a play on the Stonewall riots, and you know everybody's like, why are you being so shallow? Why are you being so out of it when it comes to this? You should have did a better job. And then they invite her to some LGBT group in the school, and they start singing. And that kind of remind me of Glee in a way. Again, just like last season when Devontae gets up there and starts singing, it kind of, his musical parts. It kind of reminded me. It was like, okay, they're channeling Glee in here. But each of the Douglas kids are now accepted in a new type of way. Daisy, she went into politics. She became class president. Devontae went into the performing arts. He became accepted in the performing arts, and Aisha's in football. Now, the Aisha and football storyline is interesting because several Bayside parents start complaining that football is causing CTE and football is now canceled. So Aisha has to go into another sport. So Slater, being the coach of the kids, of course, he's a he was a wrestler back in the day in Bayside in the '90s. So he encourages Aisha to go into wrestling. At first, she doesn't like wrestling. She's not interested in wrestling, and she doesn't think she'll succeed. I mean, she was on the football team. She was a football player even in her old high school. So that's what she knows. That's what she's used to. But now that football is closed down, she has no choice but to get into wrestling. So the first couple of episodes, she gets embarrassed. She gets beat up by this guy, the Fish, who is considerably smaller than her, but still it's a guy. And overall, towards the end, with inspiration from her friend Daisy, without giving it away, uh, she decides, you know, she is able to overcome it, and she wins the competition against Bayside's bitter rival, Valley. Um, Now, as far as Mack is also struggling. Mack and Morris is Zach and Kelly's son. He is also struggling with his own self-esteem issues because the election of the re-election for governor of California is now over. His father, Zach Morris, lost the governorship to California, kind of again paralleling, like I said, Trump. When I first heard that Zach Morris was going to be the governor of California, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is like Trump. This is a parody on the Trump situation. But Trump lost in 2020, so Zach Morris also lost in the Saved by the Bell universe, lost the governorship. So now Zach is um, roaming around aimlessly. He gets a scholarship. I mean, excuse me, not a scholarship. He gets a job as a substitute teacher at Bayside. So now he's, trying to get closer to his son, becoming a teacher in his school. But Mack feels like he's encroaching on his territory because Mack is the crown prince of Bayside. He's the prince of Bayside, but who's the king of Bayside? Who is the one that people at Bayside worship? They have a whole bunch of pictures of him all around, his medals, his trophies all around. Is his father, Zach Morris. Even the Principal Todman, basically worships at the feet of Zach Morris. So when Zach comes in, Mac, he feels some type of way. He feels insecure because I sense when it comes to Mac, all he wants to do is, be seen as great as his father. He is living in his father's shadow. It was like this in season one, but now with Zach teaching at the school, it is like this even more. It'd be interesting to see if the show is renewed for season three, how this is going to be in season three, because towards the end of season two, it is revealed that Zach and Principal Tideman will be running against each other for school superintendent. So I sense that Zach might win, and he and Mac, season three is going to focus even more on the relationship between Zach and his son. Okay, another interesting relationship from the original that this season goes back and retracts. As you recall, in season one, Jessie finally got the guts to stand up to her wimpish, cockish, husband, who she's such a domineering personality. And one of the things that made her and Slater work back in the day was that she would come out with her feminism, her liberalism, her SJWism. Like I said in the season one review, Jesse Spano was the original SJW, and all the kids are kind of like all the this generation, the Gen Zs are kind of like the Jesse Spanos of the world. But Jesse Spano's personality was so domineering and such a large personality that she was overpowering her husband, who was basically a wimp. So now she's got a divorce, and at first, um, she struggles with a way to try to break this to Jamie because, as we know, Jamie, one of the reasons why he was not successful at football was that he's a very sensitive kid. You know what I mean? Not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He didn't inherit Jesse's intellect, but one thing he did inherit was Jesse's empathy, Jesse's um, emotionalism, basically. So he inherited her emotionalism. So she is very concerned how he will take this because, as you guys remember from the original series, Jesse's parents did get a divorce, and there was one episode where Jesse's dad, I think it's the one where I, I can't remember. I think it's the one where they go to Hawaii and Jesse confronts her dad about her and her mom's divorce, and then there's that other episode where she has that stepbrother that was from New York that she never heard from again. They don't mention that, but they do mention about the divorce. So in this new one, she has to break it to Mac. I mean, excuse me, not Mac. Jamie, that he and her and his father have gotten a divorce, but he knows already. He's like, yeah, I know you got a divorce. He's really perceptive, right? And I think he struggles with marriage, and then because remember in season one he asked Aisha to get married just so that she wouldn't have to leave Bayside. He had a whole background, a whole bunch of background dancers and everything, uh, coming at her. So he kind of struggles with that. But now that Jessie is divorced, she thinks that maybe she might be having feelings for Slater. She might be rekindling that flame of her and Slater. But they show in a flashback, and this is one of the times when they do reference the college years. I don't really remember Jesse ever being in the college years. This was a flashback that never happened on the other shows, but they mentioned an episode of the college years where him and Jesse are making out, and Jesse said each time he and Jesse are making out, Jesse's like, I don't think this is right, Slater. She breaks it up, and then she does it again, and she does it again. She does it one time in the year 2000 at Y2K. He says, and then Slater's like, oh, what does it matter? Everything's going to be, um, all the computers, everything's going to shut down. All the computers are going to go down anyway, and it's going to be a complete disaster. So each time each time Slater tries to jump on it and get with Jesse, it never works out. And Slater now is coming to terms with his feelings. Slater was always macho, he was always into sports, but now he is trying to become a more sensitive man. And one of the things Jesse encourages him to do is go to therapy. Now, when he goes to therapy, it's a really funny scene, and I'm not going to spoil it. But his therapist is Kim Fields. Kim Fields, of course, was in the college years. Tootie from The Facts of Life, or Regime from Living Single, and she's like, Slater, what are you doing here? You've never been here before. All of a sudden, he just starts talking to her, and he's talking to her about the Undertaker. He's talking about the Undertaker's retirement, and she's like, no, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about Slater. He's like, Heath Slater from WWE. There's a lot of WWE references to professional wrestling in this. And like I said, I think it's because they're both on the Peacock network. Um, so this season focuses more on Jesse and Slater. You know, now the new Will They Won't They is Jesse and Slater. Before, when the emphasis was on Kelly and Zach, they're doing the Will They Won't They with Jesse and Slater instead of Kelly and Zach. As far as Kelly, now Kelly um wants to go back to school. She wants to still be a doctor. Remember, she put her dreams on hold and her aspirations on hold to marry Zach and start a family. But now she's feeling like, okay, Mack is he's almost grown. He's in college. I want to, almost in college, almost out of high school. I want to go back and finish my career. But she is waiting for that signal, that sign, if you will, from the universe to see if she's gonna go back and study medicine. And Zach is helping her. He's tutoring her. All of a sudden, Zach is this genius. Well, he did score really high on his SATs, but Zach is this genius now that he knows the answer to everything. But meanwhile, back in Bayside, he knew the answer to almost nothing. He never did his own homework. Screech did most of it for him. Lark Voorhees is in this season a little bit more. Season one, she was just in a cameo. And this season, she is in a couple of episodes. The one episode where they're in career day, and of course, she's a fashion designer, and she actually steals some of Jesse's clothes. And that episode is really good because it makes reference to Elizabeth Berkley's real life um, real life career in the movie Showgirls in the 90s. People remember one of the first NC-17 movies was Elizabeth Berkley in Showgirls because she was trying to break away from that squeaky clean Jesse Spano image like a lot of childhood stars do and try to go in a different direction. So she mentions what she did during her time in Vegas, quote unquote, and we all know what that means. And she even slides down a stripper pole. This fireman is interested in her, and the girls, Lisa and Kelly, encourage her to pursue this fireman, and she goes down the fire pole, and she ends up kicking him in the face. It's really funny stuff. Once again, this new Saved by the Bell, the new reboot, is really meta, really self-referential. It jokes and it goofs on itself. It's a spoof. It's really a spoof of the cartoon over the top corniness of the original. It's kind of, in the breaking the fourth wall and looking at it from a different, looking at as the narrator is taking the role of the viewer and looking at it from the outside, really making fun and really mocking some of the conventionalities that existed in the real world and making reference to a lot of real world stuff. For example, there is one joke, um, and this is the scene where Mack, there is a supposed secret that during the Spirit Week in 1991, Valley, which is we know is the rival school of Bayside, was the rival school of Bayside in the original, always doing crazy shit to Bayside to try to make them lose several competitions with Slater, with wrestling, with Screech, with chess, and all that. And they make reference to that. Well, they have a Spirit Week coming up um, with the kids in Bayside this year, and Mack reasons to himself that the one thing that he could do that Zach, his father, never did was beat Valley at Spirit Week. And they go into why Zach never beat Valley at Spirit Week. Apparently, one of the people at Valley whispered something into Zach's ear. So the kids want to try to find out, well, what was it that that person at Valley whispered into Zach's ear? What did they say? So Mac is like, come on, Dad, what? Tell me a secret about yourself. Tell me the secret. Tell me the secret about yourself. And what does he say? He says, well, here's a secret about me, son. I went to middle school in Indiana and I woke up one day and I was just randomly in Los Angeles. And of course, this is a reference to in 1989 when Saved by the Bell first started on the Disney Channel, the original Saved by the Bell, the precursor to Saved by the Bell. Good Morning Miss Bliss, centered around Parent Trap, the original Parent Trap star Haley Mills, who played Miss Bliss. She was the original star of the show. The show was supposed to be centered around her and a middle-aged teacher and her students, and it was called Good Morning Miss Bliss. Mark Paul Gosselaar was in this. Dennis Haskins was in it. Slater wasn't, and neither was Elizabeth Berkley. But Lark Voorhees was, and so was Tiffany Amber Thiessen. And this was set in JFK High School in Indiana. And then all of a sudden, when the show was canceled, they renewed it and they reset it in California, and it was Bayside, and they brought in Mario Lopez and Elizabeth Berkley. And it was like it was never explained how from JFK High School to Bayside, so they referenced that. So that was funny. Now with Daisy, the storyline of Daisy. Daisy, I don't know. For some reason, I thought that Daisy Jimenez's name was Daisy Ramirez. I don't know. She, of course, is played by Haskiri Velasquez, and she is studious. She is socially conscious. She is like the wokest of the woke. She is always making reference to a lot of SJW stuff, much to the amusement of other characters. Other characters mock her studiousness. Other characters mock her dedication to school. And a lot of in-joke references are made to the fact that in the first episode of season one, she couldn't get stuff laminated, for her presidential campaign. But she's the president now of Bayside Student Council. But um, she has to find other extracurricular activities because they are now removing the office of the president. And while this happens, she, who's always focused on school and always focused on trying to make her life better for her brother and her mom, who's a single mom trying to get out the ghetto, if you will, trying to get out the hood, she now becomes distracted when this other kid, Gil, comes into the school. Now, Gil is this really handsome, nerdy kid that is a lot of the stuff that Daisy is into. He's not he's not like a typical Baysider. He's not shallow. He's not like Mac. He's the antithesis of Mac. And Daisy falls for him really hard, and then they find out later a secret about him, that he is a mole from another school, and the hijinks that ensue when Mac tries to when Mac tries to expose him is really funny. And when they break up at the dance, they break up and they play the song. How am I supposed to live without you? The exact same song that was played when Kelly admitted to cheating on Zach with the guy Jeff at the Max. So, so they referenced the original with that. But long story short, this guy Gil and Daisy break up, and at the end of the Valley Spirit competition, she whispers something in the kid's ear, and Mac asks her, what did you whisper in his ear? Just like with the Zach thing. she says, "Oh, I only date guys that will win the spirit competition." So she alludes to the fact that Mac 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 Daisy is a thing. A relationship between Mitchell Hogg's character Mac Morris and Daisy is a possibility. That's what people want to see. They're completely opposites. One is very studious, one is very serious, the other is a complete prankster, but they work well together. And in a scene where Lexi and Jamie have Mac tied up in the boiler room after he wants to do this prank called the Pharaoh's Throne to Gil. I think it is a prank where he pours shit on him because he ends up doing the prank even though they have him tied up in the basement. He confesses that he does like Daisy. They have him tied up in the basement, but he ends up doing the prank anyway, and that is when they discover the kids do that. Um, Gil Ivertoli is a code name for I'm from Valley. Gil is admitting basically that he is from Valley. He is a mole from Valley, and Mac discovers this. But also in the process, Mac admits that he likes Daisy. That he has a crush on Daisy, but he's scared to pursue it because he doesn't think that Daisy will like him back. Um, when it comes to uh, Jamie, now Jamie and Lexi's relationship, like I said, they were off for quarantine, and now they have to continue their relationship. In season two, and I really like the chemistry between them. I think they are probably the best couple, even though the couple that I ship on the show is Mac and Daisy, obviously the original. I mean the main characters, but um, Lexi and Lexi and Jamie are pretty cool too. She's trying to get Jamie to, um, you know, find his purpose, find his niche. All the other kids have their niche. Some of them have music, some of them have athletics, but Jamie doesn't, uh, doesn't have that. So she's trying to get him to find his niche. Long story short, towards the end of it, he does find his niche. He does find where he belongs, and he actually wins the sprinting competition on the behalf of Bayside. But the relationship is really cool, and the fact that Lexi is a transgender doesn't come up in the show. Like again, he doesn't have really a problem with it. It's just taken as really matter of fact. And Lexi herself, she starts to become more sensitive, more empathetic, and a better character. She is by far the the character on the show that really steals the show. She's becoming the heart of the new uh, the new Saved by the Bell sitcom in the way that Screech was for the original. Now, Screech, given the event of Dustin Diamond's actual real death, I was thinking, how were they going to address this? Well, they have a scene at the Max where they discuss, memories of Screech, the stuff that Screech as the character did. They say it was really funny, and they eat his favorite um, hamburger and spaghetti sandwiches served by his robot Kevin at the Max, who says that he's had work done, and then they joke, "Well, heaven, we all." Overall, the show was really sweet. It was funny in a lot of ways, in ways that it spoofed its own self. There's one episode where Zach does the freeze frame thing, and he's like, "Wow, Gen Z is really soft," you know, you know, and it's It's like I said, it's a spoof. It's so SJW and so social justice warrior ish that it is actually a spoof on social justice warriorism and SJWism. You know, it is so far to the left that it actually is spoofing and making fun of leftism, and that's really the brilliant part of it. I think the brilliant part of it is like a realistic take on its own medium, really postmodernist version of Saved by the Bell. So I look forward to season three, more of Mac and Daisy, more of Jamie and Lexi's relationship, and where are they gonna go with it? What is Devante explores his musical career. There's kind of there is kind of an episode where he spoofs that. You know what I mean? So, and he does sing a really beautiful song towards the end of it that really displays Dexter Darden's, you know, acting range and singing range. It's kind of the best of both worlds, kind of like Glee combined with Saved by the Bell. Anyway, I look forward to season three. That's my thoughts on season two of Saved by the Bell. Peacock has really done something special with this series, kind of like in the way that they did something special with Bel Air, which I'll be getting to a review of that. It's kind of looking at our new favorite shows, the stories that we grew up with, in a different sort of light. Anyway, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell button. See when my next video is coming out. Love it.
They'll come out and get that big piece of thing for the bed, that headboard. They must got a bigger